Merry Christmas, everybody. I hope you're all having a wonderful holiday.
Merry Christmas to you, too.
Wherever you are out there, cozy and warm, listening to us today.
Absolutely.
While you're unwrapping presents and enjoying some festive treats.
Right.
We're going to go on a deep dive today into something pretty unique.
Okay.
The Spanish Christmas lottery, or as it's better known, El Gordo.
El Gordo. It's more than just your average lottery.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really deeply ingrained in Spanish culture. And it has a fascinating impact on the Spanish economy.
So we've got this great article from FinShots that breaks it all down.
Okay.
So El Gordo, the fat one.
The fat one.
Why is it called that?
Well, because the prize pool is absolutely massive.
Massive.
And what makes it so unique is how that prize money gets distributed.
Okay.
Instead of one mega winner taking home the whole pot,
Right.
the jackpot is shared amongst many people who buy portions of the same ticket.
So think about it. Your entire neighborhood or maybe everyone at your workplace could end up winning together.
That's right.
That's a pretty incredible way to foster a sense of community, don't you think?
Absolutely. I think it's a really beautiful tradition, and it's a tradition that actually dates back to 1812.
1812. Wow.
A time when Spain was at war with Napoleon,
Okay.
and they needed to figure out a way to raise funds without burdening the people with even more taxes.
Right?
So that's how El Gordo was born.
Talk about thinking outside the box.
Yeah.
What started as a wartime fundraising effort has become a national tradition.
Absolutely.
And it's the world's biggest and longest running lottery.
It is, and to this day, El Gordo contributes a significant chunk of change to the Spanish government's coffers.
Okay.
About 0.3% of their total revenue. And in 2024, the prize pool reached a whopping 2.71 billion euros.
Wow.
Which is up from 2.59 billion the year before.
Okay, now I'm starting to see why they call it the fat one.
Yeah.
But it's not just about the government revenue, right?
Right.
The article mentions something called an income shock effect.
Yeah.
What exactly does that mean?
So because so many people participate in El Gordo,
Yeah.
when those big prizes land, they inject a surge of cash into the local economies of the winning regions.
Okay.
So it's not just the winners themselves who benefit. Their spending creates this ripple effect that impacts the entire community.
So let me see if I understand this correctly.
Yeah.
It's like a mini economic boom localized to the winning areas.
Precisely. On average, El Gordo contributes about 0.2% to Spain's overall GDP.
Okay.
But in the provinces where the big prizes hit, the impact jumps to nearly 3% of the local economy.
That's a huge difference.
It's massive.
The article even gives some specific examples of how people spend their winnings, particularly younger folks.
Yeah, what are they spending it on?
They're not exactly running to the bank to stash it all away, are they?
Not at all.
What are they buying?
They're spending on things like furniture, vehicles, and even motorbikes. You know, a classic example of how a sudden influx of cash can stimulate consumption and drive demand in certain sectors.
So what you're saying is a lottery win can actually boost specific industries.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
But this income shock goes beyond just buying stuff, right?
Right.
The article also mentioned something about a link to unemployment.
Yes. It's really quite interesting.
Okay.
Research has shown that in regions where El Gordo prizes are won, unemployment actually goes down.
Really?
Yeah.
It might sound counterintuitive.
Yeah.
But it makes sense when you think about how this surge in spending plays out.
Exactly.
Okay, walk me through this.
Okay.
How does spending on things like motorbikes lead to fewer people being unemployed?
All right, so imagine you're a furniture store owner.
Yeah.
In a region that just won big in El Gordo.
Yeah, right.
Suddenly, people have more money to spend. They're coming into your store to buy new couches, tables, chairs.
Okay.
This surge in demand means you need to hire more staff to keep up right.
Right. So more spending leads to more jobs.
Exactly. It's like a chain reaction.
It is.
And the research actually backs this up. Studies have found that in those winning regions, unemployment can drop by 0.1 to 0.3%.
Wow.
About 14 months after the big win.
That's pretty significant. But the article also mentioned that this effect is temporary, right?
That's correct.
Like a short-term boost.
It is a temporary stimulus, but a welcome one.
Yeah.
Especially during economic downturns.
It makes sense that a short-term boost would be especially helpful during those tougher economic times.
Absolutely.
And speaking of downturns, the article pointed out that this effect is even stronger during recessions or periods of economic uncertainty.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Well, think about it. When times are tough, People tend to hold on to their money more tightly.
Right.
They're worried about the future, so they increase their savings.
Makes sense.
But when a region wins big in El Gordo, it injects a sense of optimism, a willingness to spend.
So you're saying that El Gordo encourages people to spend rather than hoard cash during uncertain times?
That's the idea. And this can have a big impact.
Yeah.
In fact, during the pandemic, research showed that the unemployment-reducing effect of El Gordo was even more pronounced, reaching up to a 0.5% decrease.
That's incredible. It really shows how something like a lottery can have such a significant impact on an economy, even during a global crisis.
For sure.
But the article wasn't all sunshine and roses about El Gordo.
Right.
I remember there was a section about a potential downside.
You're right. There's a potential dark side to consider, and it has to do with money laundering.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
This is where things get a bit shady, right?
Unfortunately, yes. In Spain, lottery winnings up to 40,000 euros are tax-free.
Okay.
While this is great for the average player, it also creates an opportunity for those looking to legitimize illegal funds.
So how would someone actually launder money through El Gordo?
It's a surprisingly simple process.
Yeah.
Money launderers can approach legitimate winners and offer to buy their winning tickets at an inflated price. So let's say a ticket is worth €1,000,000.
Okay.
The launderer might offer 1.1 million.
Oh.
So the winner walks away with more than they initially won,
Right.
and the launderer now has a clean source for their ill-gotten gains.
So they can just claim the money came from the lottery.
Exactly.
That's pretty clever, if you're a criminal, I guess.
Yeah.
But it seems like a risky move for both parties involved.
It is risky, but the allure of quick profits can be a powerful motivator.
For sure.
And it highlights the challenges faced by any system
Yeah.
dealing with large sums of money.
Right.
There's always a possibility of exploitation.
So while El Gordo brings all of these amazing economic benefits, it's not without its potential for misuse. It's like any system.
Right.
There are always those looking to exploit the loopholes.
Exactly. And that brings us to an interesting question the article raises. Could a lottery like El Gordo work in a different cultural context?
That's a great question. I'm immediately thinking about a country like India with its huge population and development needs.
Yeah.
Could something like El Gordo be adapted to work there?
It's certainly an idea worth exploring, but it raises some complex questions.
Like what?
We can't just look at the economic benefits in isolation.
Okay.
We need to consider the cultural factors,
Yeah.
the existing social structures, and of course the ethical implications.
That's a lot to unpack. What kind of ethical implications are we talking about specifically?
Well, one obvious concern is the potential for gambling addiction.
Yeah.
While El Gordo is, deeply embedded in Spanish culture and viewed more as a social tradition,
Right.
introducing a similar lottery in a new context could have unintended consequences.
That's a valid point.
Yeah.
And what about the argument that lotteries tend to disproportionately impact lower-income individuals
Right.
who might be more likely to spend a larger portion of their income on tickets?
That's another critical ethical dimension to consider.
Yeah.
We need to ensure that any system designed to address economic challenges doesn't end up burdening
Right.
those who are already struggling financially.
It seems like the idea of a lottery like El Gordo, while appealing from an economic standpoint, comes with a whole host of social and ethical considerations that can't be ignored.
Right.
It's not a simple solution
Yeah.
by any means.
Exactly. And that's what makes this deep dive so intriguing.
Mm.
We're going beyond the surface to grapple with the complexities and the potential benefits and the potential drawbacks.
For sure.
It's not just about the money.
Right.
It's about the bigger picture.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a reminder that the world is rarely black and white.
Yeah.
There are always, shades of gray,
Right.
nuances to consider, and unintended consequences to anticipate.
It's like we're peeling back the layers of an onion, each one revealing something new, another perspective to consider.
Precisely. And that brings us back to that thought-provoking question the article posed.
Okay.
Could a lottery like El Gordo work in a different cultural context?
It's a fascinating question. On the one hand, the economic benefits are pretty enticing,
Yeah.
especially for a country like India, as we were discussing.
Right.
But Spain has such a unique history and cultural relationship with El Gordo.
Yeah.
Would it really translate to a completely different society?
That's the crux of the matter.
Yeah.
We can't just focus on the potential economic gains.
Right.
We have to consider the existing social structures, the cultural factors at play,
Yeah.
and of course the ethical implications.
We were just talking about some of those ethical considerations.
Mhm.
What stands out to you as the most pressing concern?
Well, for me, it's the potential impact on lower income individuals.
Okay.
While El Gordo is, deeply ingrained in Spanish culture
Yeah.
and seen as more of a social tradition,
Right.
there's always a risk that introducing a similar lottery in a new context
Uh-huh.
could exacerbate gambling-related problems.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And there's also the argument that lotteries can disproportionately impact
Right.
those who are already struggling financially, right? Exactly. They might be more likely to spend a larger portion of their income on tickets.
If a lottery is presented as a solution to economic challenges, we need to be very careful that it doesn't inadvertently burden
Right.
those who are already most vulnerable.
It's a delicate balance, for sure. You want to encourage participation and generate revenue, but you also have to be mindful of the potential downsides and unintended consequences.
Absolutely. And it's not just about the potential for gambling addiction or financial strain.
Yeah.
There are cultural nuances to consider as well.
Okay.
El Gordo is so deeply embedded in Spanish culture.
Uh-huh.
It's a tradition that brings people together, families, entire communities.
Yeah.
Would that same sense of shared experience translate to a different cultural context?
It makes me wonder if part of El Gordo's success stems from the fact that it's been around for so long. It's not just a lottery, it's a cultural institution.
That's a great point. It's like trying to replicate the success of a centuries-old recipe. You can have all the right ingredients, but there's a certain magic, a certain je ne sais quoi that comes with time and tradition.
Speaking of time, I wanted to circle back to something we were discussing earlier, the income shock and its impact on unemployment.
Yeah.
The article mentioned that this effect is temporary,
Yeah.
typically lasting for about 2 years.
Right.
But it also pointed out that this impact is even stronger during recessions
Yeah.
or periods of economic uncertainty. Can you explain why that is?
It goes back to the idea of consumer confidence.
Okay.
During a recession, people tend to be more cautious with their money.
Right.
They're worried about the future, so they save more and spend less.
Mm-hmm.
But when a region wins big in El Gordo, it injects a sense of optimism,
Okay.
a willingness to spend even when times are tough.
It's almost as if El Gordo acts as a counterbalance to the fear and uncertainty that often grip people during a recession.
That's a great way to put it. And this shift in behavior from saving to spending
Yeah.
can have a ripple effect throughout the local economy. Think about all those businesses that rely on consumer spending. Restaurants, shops, service providers.
Mm-hmm.
A sudden influx of cash can make a real difference for them, especially during tough times.
And this increased demand for goods and services can lead to job creation, right? Just like we were talking about with the furniture store example earlier.
Exactly. Businesses need more workers to keep up with the increased demand.
Right.
So they start hiring. And this can have a significant impact on unemployment rates, even if it's just a temporary boost.
It's fascinating how a seemingly simple event like a lottery can have such complex and far-reaching consequences on an economy.
And that's what makes this deep dive so captivating. We're not just looking at numbers and statistics.
Yeah.
We're exploring the human element of economics,
Right.
the way individual decisions and collective behaviors can shape the trajectory of an entire region.
It's a great reminder that economics isn't just about abstract theories and complicated models.
Yeah.
It's about people, their choices, their hopes, their fears, and how those emotions can drive economic activity.
Well said.
Mm-hmm.
And it highlights the importance of considering multiple perspectives. When we're trying to understand and address economic challenges,
Right.
there's no one-size-fits-all solution.
Yeah.
What works in one context might not work in another.
Speaking of different contexts, the article also touched on the tax implications of El Gordo,
Yes.
comparing Spain's system to India's. Can you elaborate on that a bit?
Of course. In Spain, lottery winnings up to 40,000 euros are tax-free.
Okay.
This means that winners have more disposable income,
Right.
which amplifies the income shock effect and its positive impact on the economy.
But in India, there's a flat 30% tax on lottery winnings, so a significant portion of those winnings would go straight to the government, right?
That's correct. And this would, of course, dampen the stimulative effect on consumption
Right.
and potentially reduce the lottery's overall impact on job creation and economic growth.
So if India were to consider implementing a similar lottery system, the tax structure would be a key factor in determining its effectiveness.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that even seemingly small details can have a significant impact on the outcomes of economic policies.
It's a delicate balancing act. You want to incentivize participation and generate revenue,
Yeah.
but you also have to be mindful of the potential consequences.
You've hit the nail on the head. Policymaking is rarely straightforward.
Yeah.
It requires careful analysis, a willingness to consider multiple perspectives, and a recognition that there are rarely easy answers.
It's certainly a lot more complicated than just picking numbers and hoping for the best.
Indeed. But that's what makes it so fascinating. It challenges us to think critically about complex systems and how they interact with human behavior.
We've covered a lot of ground today.
Yeah.
Exploring the history, the economics, and even the ethical considerations of El Gordo.
Right.
It's clear that this Spanish tradition is far more than just a game of chance.
Yeah.
It's a cultural phenomenon with profound economic and social implications.
And as we've discussed, it raises some thought-provoking questions about alternative approaches to economic policy.
Right.
And the complex interplay between individual choices and collective outcomes.
It's like we've opened Pandora's box.
Yeah.
There's so much to unpack, so many angles to explore, and no easy answers.
And that's the beauty of a deep dive. It's not about finding definitive solutions.
Yeah.
It's about sparking curiosity, challenging assumptions,
Right.
and encouraging deeper reflection.
Well said. So as we wrap up this Christmas Day deep dive into the world of El Gordo, what's the one key takeaway you hope our listeners will remember?
I think the most important takeaway is that even something as seemingly simple as a lottery can have profound and complex implications. It's a reminder that we should always look beyond the surface, question our assumptions, and consider the multifaceted nature of the world around us.
Beautifully put. And for our listeners out there, we encourage you to continue this exploration.
Yes.
Do some research, read different perspectives, and form your own conclusions.
And who knows, maybe this deep dive will inspire you to uncover some fascinating insights of your own.
That's what we love to hear. So from both of us, happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
And happy exploring.
Absolutely.
We'll be back soon with another deep dive into a fascinating topic that's sure to get you thinking. Until then, keep those minds curious.
Keep them curious.
It really is fascinating to think about how something like a lottery, something we often associate with luck and chance, can have such a ripple effect on the economy and even on individual lives.
It's a great illustration of how interconnected everything is.
Yeah.
We often compartmentalize things, economics over here, social issues over there, cultural traditions, in their own little box.
Yeah.
But in reality, it's all intertwined.
That's so true. And that's what I love about these deep dives. We get to explore those connections.
Yeah.
Those unexpected links between seemingly disparate topics.
Right.
It's like connecting the dots in a giant, complex puzzle.
It's a great way to exercise those critical thinking muscles.
Yeah.
And to appreciate the nuances of the world around us.
Exactly. And speaking of nuances, one thing that really struck me about El Gordo is its unique structure. The way the prize money is distributed among so many winners.
Nice.
That seems to be a key factor in its cultural and economic impact.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That shared sense of winning, that feeling of community, is something you don't typically associate with lotteries. It's more than just individual luck. It's about collective good fortune.
And that seems to tie in with some of the points we were discussing earlier about the potential for a lottery like El Gordo to work in a different cultural context. It's not just about replicating the economic model.
Right.
It's about understanding the cultural values and social dynamics at play.
Precisely. If you were to introduce a similar lottery in a society where individualism is more highly prized, would it have the same impact? Would people embrace that shared sense of winning? Or would it create tension and resentment?
That's a great question. It makes me wonder if part of what makes El Gordo so special is its deep roots in Spanish culture. It's not just a game, it's a tradition, a ritual that brings people together year after year.
I think you're right. There's a certain magic to it. A sense of history and shared experience that goes beyond the monetary rewards.
It reminds me of that old saying, money can't buy happiness. Well, maybe it can't buy happiness outright, but it certainly can create opportunities for joy, connection, and even economic growth, as we've seen with El Gordo.
And that's an important point to remember. Money is a tool. And like any tool, it could be used for good or for ill. It's all about how we use it, the intentions we bring to it, and the systems we create to manage it.
So as we wrap up this Christmas Day deep dive into the world of El Gordo,
Yeah.
I'm left with a sense of wonder and a renewed appreciation for the complexities of the world around us. It's amazing to think how something as simple as a lottery can spark such a fascinating and multifaceted conversation.
It's a testament to the power of curiosity
Right.
and the endless possibilities for learning and discovery
Mm-hmm.
that exist all around us.
Well said. And for our listeners out there, we hope you've enjoyed this journey into the heart of El Gordo.
Absolutely.
We encourage you to keep exploring, keep asking questions,
Yeah.
and keep those minds open to new ideas and perspectives.
For both of us, happy holidays.
Happy holidays to you too.
And remember, there's always more to discover, more to learn, and more to share. Until next time, keep those minds curious.
Keep them curious.